I love The Prince of Egypt. The music, the story, the art, the music. It's a masterpiece in a lot of ways. But one question you might have asked yourself is it biblically accurate? Spoiler warning? No, it's not. But then, in my opinion, that doesn't matter. Or rather, it does matter, but it is not the right question. I'll get to that later though. First, I'll share some examples of how the Prince of Egypt deviates from the biblical story of Moses. Up front, I'll give this by way of disclaimer. I'm not Christian, I'm not Jewish. I don't think I've mentioned this on my channel before, but I'm an atheist. That being said, I used to be Christian, and one of my hobbies is looking into the historical development of the Hebrew Bible, aka the Old Testament. I know I'm probably shooting myself in the foot, but I say this just in case anybody doesn't want to hear what some random atheist thinks about the Bible. I don't want anybody to feel like they wasted time watching my video. I do want you to watch it though. I need your views and engagement to help my channel grow, so stay and watch. Anyway, the Prince of Egypt starts with a Hebrew mother setting her baby in the Nile River to save him from infanticide. The woman is, of course, Moses' mother. Here's where the first difference comes in though. In the film, the baby in the basket is carried down the river and narrowly escapes numerous dangers before finally arriving at his new home. In Exodus though, the story is less dramatic, with his mother just laying him among the reeds. In both the Prince of Egypt and Exodus, the baby Moses is found by a woman of the Egyptian royal family. But again, there's a difference. In the Prince of Egypt, it looks like it is the wife of Pharaoh, but in Exodus, it is his daughter. This leads to another difference. The Exodus account says that Moses' sister volunteers her mother as a wet nurse to Pharaoh's daughter. This means that Moses is still raised by his mother in his early life and grows up knowing he is Hebrew. So there is no dramatic scene where he meets his sister Miriam and brother Aaron and they reveal to him that he is Hebrew. In both versions, Moses kills an Egyptian who is beating a Hebrew, but in Exodus, it is not an accident. In the Prince of Egypt, he runs away immediately, upset by all the things that have happened to him, confused as to what and who he is. But in Exodus, he runs away because his murder is discovered, and he is afraid of the consequences. There are other differences, of course, like the fact that the burning bush scene does not include God telling Moses his divine name of Yahweh in the Prince of Egypt. The pharaoh or pharaohs in Exodus not being named, but being called Seti and Ramesses in the Prince of Egypt. Moses becoming a father before returning to Egypt in Exodus, which does not seem to happen in the Prince of Egypt. And God making allowances in Exodus for Moses' lack of trust in his public speaking abilities by assigning Aaron to speak for him, while Aaron in the Prince of Egypt is angry at and even critical of Moses. And that isn't even including details from other books in the Torah and the rest of the Bible. So yes, the story of the Prince of Egypt does deviate from the account in the book of Exodus. Why do I say this doesn't matter, though? Well, because the story of Moses and Exodus on a whole is a myth. And I don't mean it's not true. That's not what I'm here to say. From a storytelling perspective, a myth is an ancient story or set of stories, especially explaining the early history of a group of people or about natural events and facts. Myths, by nature, often have various versions and may be comprised of numerous stories, sometimes with conflicting details. For example, in Exodus 6, God says, "I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, but by my name Yahweh I was not known to them." However, in Genesis 22, we see that Abraham does know the name Yahweh, even naming a place after this name of his God. Also, Moses' father-in-law is given 3 names throughout the biblical narratives: Jethro, Reuel, and Hobab, son of Reuel. Outside of the purview of the Prince of Egypt, there are 3 sets of the 10 Commandments given to Israel, and each of them is different. And again, the Ark of the Covenant is said to house either only the 10 Commandments or also a pot of manna and Aaron's rod. Taken as myth, it is not surprising that there are details that don't align throughout these stories. And so, the Prince of Egypt is continuing the ancient tradition of retelling myths that are important to people and have been for ages. A tradition that can be found within the Bible itself. Whenever someone retells a myth, they, whether knowingly or unknowingly, pick up on or reinterpret, add or even change themes and details. For example, when Mel Gibson made The Passion of the Christ, he emphasized the humanity of Jesus and how he impacts the people around him, and also the brutality of what he suffers to save humanity from the curse of sin. Likewise, Season 1, Episode 15 of the Charmed 2018 remake emphasizes how wronged Medusa is in the ancient Greek myth. She is punished, cursed, and ultimately killed when she is an innocent victim of sexual assault.
She doesn't do it when you look at her.
Miss, you're not making any sense.
The ones she turned to stone are the ones who turned away. I see you. You were cursed to cover up the crime of a powerful man so that no one would ever see your pain.
In the opening of The Prince of Egypt, there is a disclaimer that says that artistic and historical license has been taken, meaning they knew that there was deviation from the Exodus story. The Prince of Egypt takes the story of Moses and makes it a story of two brothers who love each other and yet are both victims of circumstance, forced to opposite sides of a moral and even supernatural conflict. One stubbornly holds the ideals of who he has been told to be his entire life, even to the point that he and his family suffers for it at the hand of a foreign, even angry God. The other decides to leave a life of luxury behind, not once, but twice, because he believes that his people deserve to be free. So I would say one should not look at any myth retelling and ask whether it is faithful to the original. Usually, if not always, we don't know the original. Myths grow, change, evolve. Whatever myth retelling you are consuming, I think the more interesting question is what that current author is trying to say. What is their message? I dare say it is impossible to perfectly reproduce a myth, or any story for that matter, exactly as it was before. And why would you want to? Stories are alive, breathing, growing, and I think that's a good thing. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon, Professor Eggs and Red Spirit Mask. I've been Ken Kwame, and I'll see you next time.